movies. It's like, yeah, people have been doing that for 20, 30 years. You're not doing anything radical.
Yeah.
You're just kind of leveraging a sort of, you know, a subject because you know that it's going to get you noticed ahead or whatever. And it's like, is this where you are artistically? Really? I don't know. And I know that's really kind of mean and spirited to say, but again, I'm all about either the art or the business. And if it's funded, it needs to be pure art. And if it's business, it kind of needs to be a hybrid of both. What it doesn't need to be is a fucking political social commentary.
Yeah.
And we've watched that. We've watched platforms implode off the back of that, like Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but I also think what that's doing is it's giving, we are seeing these people come through with their own stories and quite shocking things. And, and there's an audience coming. I mean, Joker springs to mind, you know, the film totally would never have been funded years ago. And now they've sort of, I mean, Todd Phillips is amazing anyway. The Northman, have you seen that yet?
No, heard incredibly positive things.
Stunning. Yeah. And mind you, even Eggers, as the director, has said, you know, the studio were looking over him. But they still give him for a big budget movie like that. So I think audiences are are enjoying that kind of, you know, that kind of content more and more. So the woke thing is difficultly, because I think like every year there's like one or two film festival winners that are allowed into the slate of these are the big films of the year. So you'll have your Hurt Locker, you'll have your Zero Dark 30, or, you know, and I think that it's easy to kind of dream and hope that the backlot rebels are coming back from the 90s. And we're going to have all these kind of exciting indie films that get in through the cracks in the system, and they get the money to make them good, you know, the Fight Clubs and things like that. And, you know, and the Boogie Nights and things like that. And it's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if the industry, it kind of allows that now. Although the economics of it. Yeah. I mean, streaming should have done this for us. Streaming should have been the savior that basically said, you know what, we don't need to make millions back and get a theatrical release. Yeah,
yeah. Go to VOD, right? And I don't know if it works because the trickle of income that comes back is so minuscule.
I mean, there are certain projects that jump sort of ahead, and you'd never think it, but then you see a project like what's coming out next, Top Gun Maverick, and you're like, oh my God, it's just all, you know, Tom Cruise lands in his helicopter on an aircraft carrier, and you're like, fuck me. But I'll be going and watching it and going, shit, that's a great film. So.
Loads of people. You know who funded the original Top Gun?
Who was it?
The American Air Force.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, it was a recruitment. It was the American Air Force money was spent.
Yeah, I remember hearing
Top Gun. It was a recruiting tool.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, nostalgia is in, right? Stranger Things was the kind of poster child for like, holy shit, we can just do loads of nostalgic shit and people will just keep watching it, and we'll just do references, you know, and it's no surprise that the Ghostbusters that we recently got, the reboot, is basically Stranger Things does Ghostbusters, or Ghostbusters does Stranger Things, right? And this is what, I think this is the next form of IP surge is going to be, let's do not reboots, but revisits, so to speak. And Joker's a little bit like that. Joker kind of leads in that direction, which is kind of like, well, let's make a sort of 1970s movie about the kind of the gap that you know, that existed in the portfolio of Batman movies. Why wasn't there a 1970s Joker movie about his origin story? And we kind of done it now, and it feels warm. And it's like, oh, it's so nostalgic.
Yeah.
And that, I think that could be the next push. I don't know.
What's interesting is, and probably the same for you, you know, like making a low budget film is cinema, the way it's gone from COVID and that, now it's, I think people will go and pay, but it's got to be an event, you know. So
absolutely.
What I've found, and this is just trying to sort, while I'm trying to sort distribution for my first film, which is an absolute minefield, but I'm getting there, is there's a lot more platforms for those kind of films to get out there and maybe get lucky in different, you know, countries all over the world. So in some ways, what's happened with cinema, okay, it's hit mainland cinema, But for people like you and me, it gives us a chance to get a film out there and let the people decide. Would you agree with that?
I think so. So something I think quite important that kind of I've realized in the last few years is certain genres are allowed to be low budget and have fan bases that support that. So one of the most positive is horror. Like, you can make a really low budget horror film, which is objectively bad in terms of production value, and horror fans will go out and watch it and support it on the basis it's a good concept, or that, you know, they just support horror films in general. And you've got platforms like Shudder, which will specialize in that and just that. Martial arts films, you know, tend to get good ground support from people. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing like action and thrillers, that can be tougher, particularly if they lean towards the action side of things, because people will laugh at a low budget action film because it's got green screen and because, like, the car chases aren't very good. And it's like, what do you think the producer's just going to pull a car chase out their ass for you? Like, what are these people supposed to do? Like, what do you want from us? We can't give you more. There is no more. We are putting all our own money in.
Oh no, yeah.
You know, people are doing stuff for beer and petrol and things like that. And, you know, it's cruel. Some areas are more cruel than others. So yeah, I think that's important to note. It does. Yeah.
I'll tell you something interesting as well yesterday, because I spoke to FilmHub yesterday, because I know there's different distributors, but that is one platform, you know. And what interested me is they said to me, look, you know, we've had some films that don't do very well. We've had some films do very well. But the key is your synopsis, having a pitch deck, having a good poster. Because you go on Netflix, what do you look at? You look at the image. And I think that's a big thing that's changed now for a writer. The script's got to be great, but get all those, you know, you got these pitch decks and these posters of all different sizes. It's got to look, and your synopsis. I mean, what I've done probably over the last couple of years, my synopsis, I've had to get good at writing that. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, this year for me is the big push of what I'm calling the gap. You may have seen my blog post about this, and it was, you know, basically I'm saying, a log line and a script isn't enough, and people seem to think they can go out there with, you know, 25 to 35 words, and that's going to be enough to convince someone who does not want to read another script this week, if they can help it, jump at the opportunity. Oh my god, I must consume all 135 pages. Fantastic first script someone's written. And it's that interim in between. It's that slowly catchy monkey where you hit them with a synopsis, or you hit them with kind of a 2-page treatment or something like that, and they get enough flavor from that to go, oh yeah, this is something that's in my remit, this is something which I think has market value, and go off that. Pitch decks are a bit of a controversial one at the moment. Some people love them, some people hate them. I believe Netflix won't look at anything without a pitch deck at the moment, whereas I know some producers who are like, don't come at me with a pitch deck, because they're often so full of complete bollocks now, and they're impenetrable. A platform I'm really excited about at the moment is ScriptHop. And ScriptHop has come out of the industry, right? And this is the weird thing. It's like, it's got like Shane Black is on the advisors board, right? So this is like, you know, one of the ex-head of story of UTA is like one of the guys behind this, right? And they've built what they wish they'd seen in the industry, or what the studios want to see. And basically it's kind of like you build what's called a packet, which is like their version of a pitch deck, where you fill in all these blanks and everything like that. And you can do some really neat stuff. Like you can have music playing in your script in certain sections, and you can have imagery of locations and things like that. Like, it's incredible what you can build on it to share your material. And the idea is you share the packet instead of sharing a PDF. And if you update it, they get notified. And it's really like, it's a great solution. So there's things like that out there which are getting really excited. And Script Revolution itself is really kind of gearing itself. I've kind of been, you know, we're talking about the future. I've kind of slid it more towards now. Like, it rewards people who put synopsises on there. It rewards people who put posters on there.
But a chip on.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm in the same
4 years ago.
I'm in the same position. I'll tell people, like, you need to do a 2-page treatment for your script. I'm like, oh shit, I need to do 10 2-page treatments out of my own fucking spec scripts, you know. And that's the irony of being a writer. Like sometimes you just don't want to write this stuff.
I know,
but
because I remember when I first started writing short films like you, and then a first feature and a TV series, and that's it. And now my computer's just completely bogged up with one pages, synopsis, pitch decks. It's like, fucking hell, it's endless. But it is what, you know, I remember when I first started writing, and it was your first 10 pages have got to be perfect. Well, I'm not being funny. If you are lucky enough for anybody, a producer, anyone, to look at that first it's that first sentence almost.
Yeah, it can be.
That looks shit, or it doesn't. There's no way they'll read 10 pages. I don't know where that came from. That is old school.
It came from Script Notes. Script Notes would do a first 10-page review, and then everyone every amateur screenwriter decided they were John August and Craig Mason, so they were all doing 10-page reads on each other's scripts and being really picky about stuff. It was fucking awful, and that's the danger out there. And I think John and Craig have spoken before. Like they say one thing, and it just mutates and spirals into something huge. But I only share what works for me, or what I see working for other people, or what the industry tells me is working for them. And like my last film, Night Train, the one that's at Cannes at the moment, like that was green lit off the back of a 2-page treatment that I'd written in the morning. Like that, like I had the idea being kicking around in my head. I thought, you know what, this is actually realistic. We could perhaps do this if it fits logistically. And I got up in the morning, I formed it into a proper story. I wrote a nice, tidy 2-page treatment, sent it to my producer. My producer's like, can we fix all the spelling mistakes because you're fucking dyslexic and this is what we have to do all the time. And he's also dyslexic. So it's like between the two of us, we're like managed to sort of get something that's presentable at a 3rd grade level. And it went out that afternoon, and we had an actor attached, and someone basically said, I will fund this movie today.
Bloody hell.
And that's how that all started.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And that's where you hope to get to as like a writer producer, because 1 second, sorry, my headphones fell out.
Killed the Yeti.
Very sophisticated. Cut, retake, okay, action. Right, so I mean, it happens like that, and you hope it happens like that, because what you don't want to do, and I keep, kind of telling people this, if you keep churning out spec scripts, it's such a slow way to hit the market with different ideas. Yeah. Whereas synopsis is, like, if you're in a position where you might be able to get something greenlit, like, that's what we did during the pandemic. We churned out 20 or 30 2-page treatments and had those floating around trying to get something to catch.
Yeah, so you're putting the work in. And the other thing, I mean, if someone listens to that, they're like, oh, right, you've got your producer friend. But I'm sure that goes back to other work or relationships or networking or time and experience. It's not just, let's just email this producer now. Yes, send me a 2-page treat. It doesn't work like that. And I think that's what people need to understand.
Right, no, Lee, you just email investors@hollywood.com.
Oh, no,
which is the secret email address we all have. And then there's a nod and a wink. And they're like, oh, you're on the list. Right, that's okay. I mean, it is. I mean, you'd be surprised how often as producers, multiple films under your belt of reasonable budgets, and you just feel shit out of luck. You're just like, there's literally no money anywhere for us. Like, we are back at stage one. And it can feel like that a lot. And I've just shared a blog yesterday about my adventures in producing as a screenwriter, just on part 2. And it details, very candid, about how after Break Even, I wrote like 3 or 4 scripts before we could get another funded movie. Like, as a producer, like you kind of just start doing another sort of set of spec scripts. And that's when treatments are so powerful, because you can kind of, in some cases, bypass that time. Yeah. And the good thing about a tidy treatment, if your story's sound as well, is like, that's how you write a script in 6 days or 10 days. That's how you get a tidy script out of it, because you kind of laid the path for yourself.
Yeah. And I think what you said there about producing, when I did my first feature, I produced it as well. And I tell you what, I learned so much. But one thing I did learn is I'm not going to produce and direct again, because Jesus Christ, you don't realise the producer, what was I listening to that I was listening to the other day? They said the producer gets paid the least and has the most amount of things to do on set and has to look after everybody. I was like, when I direct, give me the cameraman, let me go in my corner, can someone sort the food out and make sure someone's on time?
Dude, seriously, it's so funny how like a producer on set will be seen as, oh, here comes money bags over there. They've got themselves sorted. It's like 9 out of 10 times your producer's paying to be there, and their involvement in the project can span decades before they see any kind of return, if at all. You know, I'm trying to Linda Obst, because an incredible producer who's done some amazing films, and she still works with the guy Nolan, you know, Christopher Nolan on his stuff. But you know, she produced Contact with Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
And she sat on that project for 10, 15 years passionately. She paid the writers to do rewrites during that time and everything like that. And they sat with her. She went through so much to get that film made. And that, you know, in her book, Hello, He Lied, you know, she talks in detail about going through that. People don't see that. The average writer does not see that. And that's why reading about how your favorite films have been made is so powerful, because you realize that it's a shit show. It's a shit show of doubt, of problems, and various other things. It's not this beautiful, easy birth of genius that people think it is.
It's got to be in you. It's got to be in your blood. You know, my wife will come in here and she'll go and go to bed, and it'll be 11:30, and I'll be stuck on the computer editing or doing stuff. She'll go, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'll be that stressed. And then, and it's for nothing really. Well, you're not going to get, you know, maybe you get paid eventually, but it's got to be in your blood. If it's not in your blood, you're wasting your time.
It is, and I think, you know, one of the most powerful pieces of advice I ever got was a couple of years ago. It was from Shane, my co-producer. Shane produced Gridiron Gang with The Rock, you know, so he's got this kind of remarkable history in that respect. And I was just like at my wit's end, and I'm like, dude, this just seems pointless. It's fruitless. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's always jammed tomorrow. And he said, well, the way I kind of come to see it is, if you were going to only spend that time sitting around playing Xbox and eating pizza, why wouldn't you spend that time and money making a movie instead? It's something. And that was really powerful for me. And I was like, wow, you know, because it should be a vocational hobby at its core. And that changed a lot for me. And it became less about desperately trying to make some kind of money out, a living out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I always ask my guests for a bit of advice. You've just said a bit there. Have you got any, maybe to a new writer or what you've been given?
I think, I mean, read the books. That is the most powerful thing you can do. You've
got Burn and Turn out as well.
Turn and Burn, my own book. You know, kind of push my own book. You know, about writing and screenplays. But for me, the most phenomenally powerful thing I ever did was I just started read the autobiographies, not the pretentious. You know, and books like mine, they're kind of pretentious guides on the craft and stuff. And that's fine. Learn about the craft that way, but if you want to learn about how movies actually get made, how your heroes became the heroes that they are and their heroes, read the autobiographies, learn about these people and the stories that they went through, and just realize that at no point was it easy. And at no point has the path ever been laid out ahead of them, you know, clearly. You know, Ang Lee walked into Ted Hope's office with a carrier bag of his lunch in and said, "My name's Ang Lee. I need to make another movie or I'm going to die." Like that's where Ang Lee was before he did stuff like The Hulk. Like, he wasn't confidently planning where he was going to buy his first Ferrari from or anything like that. So, like, all of it is just absolutely fascinating. Because, like I say, and I know I just kind of sound like a stuck record on this, but you will find that there was so much doubt and criticism in everything that's been successful. There always is. And you take something from that and you go, you know what, my heroes fought for what they believed in, whilst also taking on board important information and correcting their course. And you kind of pick up on that. And you kind of think, you know what? I'm full of doubt. I'm struggling. Like me, you know, back living with my parents or something like that. That's where Tarantino was before Reservoir Dogs.
Exactly.
Right? That's where he was. And no one believed in that dude. You know, Lawrence Bender was the first producer he ever really spoke to at a garden party. And look where that went.